if you think of everyone who's spoken before me, every one of them is our partner in some way or the other.
Right.
So we partner with our content providers, including Amazon, Netflix, Geo, really thinking about how can we make them successful. And
Right.
so how do we feature them on our home screen? How do we ensure that their apps are visible? How do we make sure that their content is pulled out so that consumers know, okay, this is some content that I really want to watch tomorrow. The Control show, for example, like how do we pull it out so that people understand it's there and available to watch? That's number one. Number two, for our OEMs and our operators, really thinking about what is it and what is their unique business models that we can play a part in. And so like I mentioned, for our operators, we have what we call the operator tier.
Yes.
And so for that, it's the Android, the #1 world-class platform that we provide, royalty-free, that they can license from us, and then on top of that, they build their experiences, which we help and contribute on.
And that leads me really nice to a question about TV and Google TV, Android TV. Now we have this new sort of streamer with GTV streamer. How have this comes in to advance the bigger, wider picture of the Google CTV story? I'd like to really focus on that with you.
Yeah, so the Google TV streamer, we used to call it Chromecast.
Right.
And so this is the next generation of Chromecast. And if you think about Chromecast, the evolution that we've had with it, we started it as it was a casting solution. So you use your phone, you quickly cast, and you watch content that way. Over time, based on what we hear from our consumers and our partners, we've evolved it into Chromecast with Google TV. And today, we're completely launching it as the Google TV streamer, which is a higher-end TV set-top box. It has Ethernet. And what also it provides, so this is an enormous marketplace shift that we're seeing in the home. So if you think about TVs, central place in the living room, how do they help you with a lot of things you want to do in the home, especially as home gets itself more connected? And so if you think about, well, who's at my doorbell? Who's ringing the doorbell? Can I quickly find out who's there and then decide whether to open the door or not, to turn the lights on and off? And so that's a big functionality, what we call the Home Hub functionality that we're bringing to the Google TV streamer, which will launch on all Google TVs in a few weeks as well. So that's number one. Number two, I personally think the evolution of TV is headed in a few different form factors. One is the flat screen frame TVs. We've launched two, one with TCL and one with Hisense. We call it the Canvas TVs. Really, they've showcased the power of TVs to be always on. And if you think of an always on TV, you don't need to be just watching TV on it, right? You can be doing a lot more with it while you're not even viewing it. And so towards that, we're really thinking about what we're calling generative AI screensavers. So play fun with your kids. You know how in the past kids would draw something, you would put it up on your fridge. Well, this is the digital equivalent in my mind, where with your kids you can create really fun artwork on your TV and then have it up on your TV when it's not showing videos. Similarly with photos, how do you showcase brilliant images of, hey, can you show me those photos where I was at APOS in Bali last year?
Right.
And then showcase a collection of that to reminisce on. Like that would have been the perfect example for you to play yesterday at your mixer. So those are some of the very, very interesting use cases that are coming up and which I'm a strong believer in.
I want to come on to Gen AI because you've been at the forefront of that, and I know you've done a lot of thinking around that. About a month ago, there was a very influential investor that wrote a note to all the hedge funds and said this is the most overrated technology the world has ever known. The use cases, practical use cases in terms of revenues and cost for his portfolio companies and startups is overblown and it ain't gonna happen. And there was a stock sell-off and blah, 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 blah. But when Google's at the forefront of this, other companies are, there's some crazy valuations out there as well. As you look at, let's forget that for now, but let's give them the context of the people you deal with and you work with. What is the real impact you're seeing in terms of business output and business case for that?
Okay, so this was not a planted question at all.
I know, but I like to mix it
No,
up.
great, it's great. Look, I don't think that any of us really know what the final output is going to look like. I think everyone's experimenting. And I will tell you, there are certain use cases that are just popping up as being very obvious use cases, like generating images, for example, as your screensavers. I think it's very natural. I don't know if you saw what we did with photos in terms of Ask Photos,
Right.
where you can now ask it very complex queries and it will find your photo for you from that complexity. Similarly, in email and in our workspace products, we're seeing a lot of appetite for like, hey, generate this presentation for me very quickly, and by the way, use some prompts. So I think those are some that are very obvious. I think on the creativity front, I know we just heard from AWS. Those are some things that we're looking at the Google Cloud front too. But I think it's very early days. And I am a big believer in creativity comes from humans.
Of course, we heard yesterday,
yeah, as you heard yesterday, I was at Pixar Animation for many years. I was at YouTube for many years. And so I think that creativity doesn't go away from humans. But I think generative AI is a tool that everyone should be using and thinking about as to how it fits in the workflow that you have to really make it much more efficient and much faster. So I think that's really where I see generative AI coming in.
Got it.
And I would just encourage everyone to continue experimenting with it in various formats.
Last question from me before you go. Obviously, there's been changes in structure, different products. You're working on a lot of new things that you've showcased. What can this room and the platforms you work with in the region look forward to in 25?
Yeah, so I would say, so Google TV, we've launched in 10 regions in APAC, and we just announced today, I think, 4 new regions where we're launching Google TV: Indonesia, Vietnam, Thailand, and one more, Philippines.
Right.
And so very excited about that. With that launch, we're also opening up display advertising. So, and that's really one of the biggest areas for advertising, because it's the first screen that a user sees, right? You turn your TV on, what's the first thing you see? You see like the giant masthead. And we've had enormous success in the US and in the UK, really helping our customers understand, hey, what's out there? What do I want to watch? And those mastheads are enormously great in driving the traffic to your content. And so I'm excited to announce that that's open now. And in fact, we'll be hearing from some people on my team right after this in terms of monetization. In terms of growth, 270 million monthly actives, growing 47%. Last year, I would say growing even faster for next year. And really the growth story is a big one. Only because, Vivek, without growth, really like the value for our partners is not as much. Like if you think of a Netflix or you think of a Max or everyone we heard, global growth is really what it is. Like, you've got to combine global with local, and we're able to provide that. We're one of the few unique platforms that can really provide that growth narrative. So very excited about that, and I would encourage all of you to lean in with us on that front.